Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA branded gear. First of all, we will say this at the end individually. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody watching this. Probably will come out maybe the day before Thanksgiving, depending on the work schedule of one Gary Abbott, the absolute GOAT. I also want to thank Gary for getting us the media passes in Iowa. It was a great experience. Grant, Mark, good morning. Good to see you boys. GT, it's been at least 2.5 days. So it was great to see you in person. I don't see you guys enough in person, so I really enjoy it. And Grant, as usual, Mark was the governor of Iowa, but I did get a chance to just eat some chicken wings with him by myself for a few hours. So before people came over and started asking for autographs. So it was a good weekend. So let's just start with Iowa State. Okay. I think that's where most of the eyes and ears of America were on. Quick summary: Iowa wins 21-15, couple of really interesting results. I think it kind of went how a lot of people had it. GT had it a little optimistically. Iowa State 6-4, but wasn't that far off. Grant, you had it 8, or Mark, you had it 8-2. You weren't that far off. I had it 6-4, but I had 2 matches wrong, but they went in the opposite direction, so they ended up being right on the point spread. But anyway, we'll just start. We'll go at 25. By the way, GT, maybe talk a little bit about the energy, just the atmosphere there in Carver.
Well, I mean, I think nobody really does it quite as good as Carver. There's a couple of locations that I mean, once again, I don't want to start fights between all of the universities. And I mean, Gallagher-Iba, Hilton Coliseum, formerly West Gym, like the barn up in Minnesota, the Snake Pit at Lehigh. So just, once again.
State College, we better get Penn State in there.
Well, yeah, you can do Rec Hall, you can do Bryce Jordan, the Cavelli Center, all these other type places, right? So it was really cool to see. Iowa puts on a show. If you guys haven't been to an Iowa Duel this year, it's a new entrance location for the Hawks. So, basically they come out from separate sides now. It's very cool. Once again, Carver's an electric place to watch a duel. Once again, Iowa did a great job, and it was really cool to see.
It's flipped around because I always end up sitting on the floor next to the visitors' bench because the one side is the head table, the one side is the cheerleaders, the one side is the Iowa bench, and there's too many people jumping up and down, and there's floor seats there. So I end up sitting on, by default, the last side. And this is the first year, Mark and GT, where you're sitting or where I'm sitting, you can peek into the tunnel. And so I text GT after, in the middle of 174, which got out of hand. I'm like, Ferrari's wrestling. He's the only one in the tunnel. And you just get that exclamation point emoji. So, all right, we'll start at 25. Meza, however you say his name. Good win over Peterson. We'll kind of just alternate here. Mark, thoughts on that match?
Meza didn't look like a freshman to me. He's pretty savvy. He looked very comfortable in pretty much every position he was in. Very good on his feet. Didn't let anything bother him. Is he, and I don't know this, Grant, you may know this, is he the guy that is a Cuban transfer?
No, he's from Arizona. He's from Sunnyside.
Okay. Because I had heard that they had a Cuban guy there that was supposed to be a world beater, so I haven't heard anything on that.
Yeah.
So
they said
for two freshmen, I was really impressed with him. I thought he wrestled, of all the Iowa State guys, except for maybe one other guy, I thought he performed the best in that environment. I mean, he didn't let anything bother him. He just went out and wrestled, and he looked good.
Yeah, there were kind of some interesting stall calls that the Iowa State bench wasn't very comfortable with. Cale Peterson looked like he might have been a little sucked out weight-wise. But so Iowa State starts off 3-0. Then we get to 33. Ayala wrestles Frost. So GTU and I got to talk about this over chicken wings, but your thoughts on this match. These guys are obviously familiar with each other.
No, I thought it was a great match. I thought, plenty of action. Really could have gone either way. And then in the third period, Ayala kind of opened it up a little bit more. Good scrambles, good wrestling. But yeah, it was a really great match for Ayala. Because once again, All-American versus All-American. Very good match for Ayala to kind of right his ship a little bit. And then, of course, Frost, he's right there too. So it was a good college match.
Kevin Dresser in the post-conference post-interview said that Frost may not have had the perfect weight cut, but he was very complimentary of Ayala, said, hey, we needed to get tough, and the other guy got tough. And it ended up being a 3-1 takedown match, but it was 2-1 going into that last scramble, and Ayala clearly deserved to win the match. But if that takedown goes the other way, it's like a lot of things in life. You can go the other way. 41.
Well, hang on, David. Let me say something about 33, because you and I had conversations, and we've done this in the past. Frost and Ayala both wrestled on the same club team for Seabolt. So they traveled and did the circuit together, and Drake was always the guy when it came to the big matches. He was there. Frost wrestled some of the matches if they sat Drake. I thought Drake would big brother him just because he's a year older. They've wrestled so many times. Do you think, and Grant, David, I've talked to David about it. Do you think that has an influence, Grant, on a kid?
Not really. I mean, I think it can. I think it can as maybe like a psychological thing. But once again, they've been apart from each other for a while now. Like, different teams, different cultures, different practice partners. And I highly doubt that, like, over the Christmas break, they're training with each other. You know what I mean? I don't think it's like they were on the same high school team and then we're going to the same club team in the off season where they would maybe come back and train with each other a little bit more. I don't think there's a lot of cross-pollination between the Iowa and Iowa State teams when they come back to maybe Seabolt and train together, right? So I think that it can be a factor when it's maybe some younger kids, but I think Drake and Frost are a little bit more seasoned than maybe just some regular high school kids. So, and both those guys, they've been at, they're both very highly ranked high school kids. They've done very well, but yeah, to your point, it definitely could have been a factor. And I haven't necessarily discussed it with those type of, I don't know, those two guys specifically, but it definitely could be a factor, but I don't think with those two guys, it would have mattered much.
I feel like it was a factor of 174, which we'll get to. Also, anybody that had cross-pollination on their bingo card, congratulations. A, it got put out there. B, perfectly placed before the 10:15 mark. So well done by you, GT. 141.
You're not gonna get very many big words out of me, but
it was beautiful.
Thanks to the sponsors of like Iowa Corn and Corteva, like any sort of ag science people, we'll get some cross-pollination going.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, if Poncheros wants to sponsor the podcast, I'm here for it. So, Zach Redding, Ryder Block. So one of the cool things about sitting in the corner or next to the corner is you can hear the coaches. They specifically told Zach Redding, like, you got to close gap, watch the double, and then boom, he gets doubled. Redding comes back, real hard ride. Interesting choice in the third period for Iowa to pick down because they had to get a takedown anyway. And you kind of feel like, okay, I think they thought if they get away and a takedown, then even if Redding gets away, they win the match, as opposed to two takedowns, like a takedown gets away, go to overtime. But nonetheless, Redding wins it. I feel like, two good kids, but not guys probably going to be on the podium. So we'll keep it moving because 49's crazy match. So 49, nothing happens the first period. I think the order of choice is really different here. And I've talked to both you guys about it off air, but just basically, I think Parco has two paths to victory. One is to win on his feet, and one is if he's getting killed on his feet, he's pretty good on top. Echemendia's not good on top, which we found out, obviously. They go, Iowa State picks neutral, shot to the body, bear hug, almost gets the back points. He's up 3-0, then 3-1. Third period, Parco picks down. I love Kevin Dresser, St. John, Metcalf. I 100% believe in this scenario. You just have to put two hands up in the air and go neutral. It's 3-2. I don't believe that means he would have won the match for sure. He had a warning against him. He has a tendency to float to the edge. You're in Carver Hawkeye. Very strong chance at least one stall call happens. But what does happen is Parco stands up. There's a clasping call. And then eventually there's a cutback call, GT. So both sides throw the brick. Kurt Frost is the official's name? Correct. No relation to the Frost brothers, just so people understand that.
Yep.
We could hear him go, we're going to look at it ourselves, him and Derek Clark. They decide to look at it, and they call the clasping. Then Brands rethrows the brick for the leaving your feet mat return. He wins that challenge. Then Echemendia lets him go, so it's 4-3. Now, I'm not blaming University of Iowa, but that point didn't go on the board for a while. Echemendia loses the match and makes a shrugging expression. We talked to him. We were sitting on the floor with us during the 174 match. He goes, I didn't know I was losing. Now, you're coaching. In freestyle, it's pretty simple. You just throw the brick. Who cares if you lose your brick for that one match? You tell your guy you're losing. So, thoughts on that match? Because to me, it's kind of crazy. Echemendia got the only takedown in the match and lost it.
Yeah, it's hard to, like, once again, you're in the moment. You got three coaches. You got to figure out, roles and responsibilities to kind of look at the scoreboard and whatnot. And once again, elite level staffs on both sides. So great challenges on both ends to try to figure out, where they could, maybe have a challenge in that scenario. But yeah, I think there's got to be a better way for the athlete to realize like where they are in the match. But I think it is a wild scenario with, whatever it is, how Parco was able to achieve points in that match. With, Echemendia basically getting the one solo takedown. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that one. So
let me say this, Mark. I know you had to step away for a second. We just kind of described what happened in the match, so you're caught up. I'm just going to say something mathematically. I don't think this is necessarily what happened. If Iowa State wins that match, the duel's 18-18, and they win on criteria because that'd be only 6-point decision. Just so people understand that. Mark, you got thoughts on 49?
Yeah, I thought it was nuts. I've never seen so many bricks thrown in one match because they would throw the brick. Both of them threw the brick at the same time. One threw it for the locked hands. Iowa State did it for locked hands because they thought he locked his hands when he was standing up. And Iowa threw it for the cutback, I think, is what they threw it for, and the locked hands. And then they find out, well, the locked hands was before, so they gave the bricks back, except that Iowa State didn't get I think they gave the bricks back to somebody.
So this is when you stepped out. So let me they agreed to look at it, and they did call the locked hands. So the cut.
Okay.
And listen, it's just it wasn't 27 bricks. They just both threw it one time. So.
Yeah. And then Tom threw it again for the cutback.
Well, right.
Because he got to.
It was the same. They gave it back to him, and he just goes, no, I'm challenging this other thing.
Yeah. To me, it was.
Yeah.
I'm like you, David. I would agree with you 100%. I would have probably taken neutral if I was Iowa State there.
Well, no, not taking neutral. Let him go. Without touching him.
Yeah.
Without touching him. So that's the whole thing. Your guy doesn't ride. You don't even want to start in the freestyle position. If Parco turns around, grabs you, and reverses you, he might win on riding time. Just start neutral. So,
yeah.
Okay, 57. Nothing basically happened. and then Teamer gets hurt. I talked to a person last night who spoke to Teamer. Okay. He said it's a tendon in his hamstring. I said, what does that mean? He goes, he's being told 6 to 7 weeks. Okay. So I will not get into whether or not you keep him ranked or not. That's irrelevant. It changes the team rankings, but whatever. If he can wrestle in March. So I will say this. Mark and I talked about this, GT, on the drive back. He kept me company. 57 is wide open now, bro, because Teamer's probably not going to be 100%. Meyer Shapiro is dealing with concussions. Daniel Cardenas is supposedly redshirting. Like, if I'm Stanford, I take Daniel Cardenas out of redshirt, number one. And number two, like, the next highest ranked guy up there is Kasich, who a week ago wasn't the starter. So, I mean, if you said Antrell Taylor's going to win 157, I'm like, you might be right. So there's just something to keep in mind moving and shaking there.
I think they moved Sammy Sasso down to 157. My opinion, I think that's what Ohio State should do. Because he'd be a big favorite there if he's healthy enough to compete like that.
We talked about this. Yeah, GT, go ahead.
Well, once again, I think that you guys can play that game with it when it comes to the team score thing. It's like, okay, well then, if Sammy Sasso goes to 57, Patty Gallagher goes up to 65. I mean, Patty Gallagher is right now ranked 9th. I mean, he's pretty. I mean, once again, as far as the rankings are concerned, like, he's not outside looking in on potentially being an All-American. What does Sammy Sasso look like moving forward? Antrell Taylor is now, is sitting in the driver's seat as the 3 as far as like rankings. But I think that we all know how amazing Ja'Cory Teamer is. And I think the main story from this is that, like, I hope that he becomes healthy. He's in a new situation. He previously wrestled for Arizona State. Now he's at Iowa. You hate to see anybody of his caliber go down due to injury, right? And especially in a duel like Iowa versus Iowa State. Like, once again, it's his first time doing that. He gets hurt in the match. I think it was the right call to, like, pull him just in case something got worse. But yeah, you, as a team race thing, you're going to have a whole bunch of coaches figuring out, like, what 57 looks like. Not to mention whatever is going to happen between Kasich and Facundo. Then that is a whole different ballgame. But Kasich just beat Keller at the All-Star Classic, which means nothing when it comes to rankings, but it's a good match measuring stick for where they are.
Then he beat Facundo at Black Knight on Sunday. So, yeah.
So, there you go.
Yeah.
All sorts of weird stuff for the people to think about when it comes to rankings and or team scores.
These ranking guys, GT, I tell you, they drive me crazy. These guys.
What about Cody Chittum? Because I heard he weighed in.
So, I was going to get there. So, this is kind of at the point where you go, hey, Iowa State's lineup could change, because we're going to get to the point where. So, I think Tarakina is the guy. I think, Mez is doing the 5-match thing. I think Frost is 33. I think they want to get Echemendia to 41, get Pinheiro to 49, and get Chittum in at 57. And then GT, we're going to get to it. Absolute perfect call about Connor Uten being a dog. Said it before. We didn't even know how to pronounce that man's name correctly. So, with a name like Mirikitani, I should get Uten right. Okay. And then I think Aitan goes to 74. And then I think that's a whole, I don't know, who cares about the duel? You're talking about a team that can they score more or less points at nationals. All right, 65. Connor Uten, maybe the story of the duel for a guy that lost. Went really, really well with Caliendo, ends up losing by 4, maybe 5, but scored the first neutral takedown. Caliendo came out of it, but Caliendo impresses me, man, even though he didn't win by a lot of points. He gets the legs. He attacks the legs a lot. He's like kind of the new school guy that Iowa wants, guys that are trying to score points a ton. So, GT, I'll let you have the floor here on 65 because you were right about Uten. Was he about as good as, like, did you expect that kind of performance out of him? Because you obviously had some info on him, some
Yeah, I think I think the story starts with Caliendo and being like how good he is, and then to have somebody that is basically almost an unknown for the rest of the nation to be like, oh well, this guy is going up against the number 2 ranked guy in the nation at home inside Carver, right? And Uton wrestled really well, wrestled through positions, definitely showcased his ability to kind of wrestle with somebody that's already a proven talent. And once again, I think he kind of got hurt in the match too, like rolled his ankle and, some other things like that. But I think the story is Caliendo had to basically become, like he had to go get it at the end. And he has shown that multiple times throughout his career. But once again, he showed up in the big moment again for himself and Iowa. Caliendo's a tough out, man. He's a really talented wrestler, but I think if you hadn't known about Connor Uton, get to know it. He's a really talented wrestler.
Where's he from, Grant?
He's from Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio guy. Dresser mentioned that if he took injury time, he was legitimately injured. I think Caliendo wins a match either way, but the injury time and then the blood timeout really did allow him to compose himself a little bit. Okay, 74-84, kind of collectively. So PK, they send out PK instead of Nelson against Riggins. Mark, you mentioned like the Ayala Frost thing. I feel like these guys were in the room together last year. Who beats him worse? PK goes hard the whole time, gets the tech fall with like 2 seconds left, maybe 1 second left, GT, something really close like that. Great interview, starts the interview with his mouthpiece in, takes it out. There's drool popping off of it. I'm going to exhaust the scoreboard. And I don't even know Patrick Kennedy, but I kind of love him. He just seems like a bootstraps kid, just work hard your whole life. He's going to be a grinder. He's going to be a successful human being. And I will combine that with 84. You mentioned Ferrari comes out. He beats Bachman. Bunch of different ways to read the tea leaves here. It can be, hey, they want to keep Ferrari engaged. He's got 5 matches. It can be they think he scores more points. His style's better. He's a tall guy. Bachman's a short, powerful guy like Gabe. Gabe's dad was there front row. Ferrari mentioned he didn't know till late. So, and he almost gets the major. Bachman just relaxed. With 3 seconds left, he just stopped wrestling and almost gave up a takedown. I mean, the point wouldn't have mattered. But if you're a coach, GT, you're a coach. If you're winning or losing, you just don't wrestle the last 3 seconds on a restart. That's the stuff that drives you more crazy than some other stuff, like making a mistake, because effort is 100% controllable. So, GT, Mark and I had an interesting conversation. I won't get into all the details of it, but let's just summarize it. They still have a lot of lineup options. At 74, they can go PK, Nelson, or Gabe. And then at 84, they can go Gabe, or they can go Ferrari.
Or Nelson.
And Nelson.
Okay. I think if Ferrari wrestle right now, he's the 4th best guy at 184. I think behind the big 3, he's the next best guy. Mark says they're going to redshirt him. And I think he's probably right. But I think the combination of guys that score the most points could be Gabe at 74 and Ferrari at 84. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because I think you have a guy that's out of all of those individuals, the only person that's an All-American thus far is Nelson Brands.
That's right. Yeah.
So once again, not to say anything against the other guys, is PK had an opportunity once, Arnold hasn't had an opportunity, and Ferrari has not had an opportunity yet. So no ill will towards the guys that haven't had the opportunity quite yet. But it's one of those things where you just got to you give kudos where kudos are meant, right? So I don't know what to think on that situation. I don't plan to pretend what goes on in the Iowa practice room. I'm not there. I don't get to see it. I don't get to see who's making jumps. and that's okay. I think, once again, commentary brands have a very good plan. And once again, they're very intelligent coaches when it comes to organizing moves and lineup shifts and what they need to be able to do in order to maximize their team. So I have pure faith that those guys are going to get it right with whatever happens at 74, 84, because they do have some great options. And all those kids probably deserve to have a shot just to see what happens.
Yeah. So Mark's position is he doesn't know. Well, Mark, you're good. What's your position?
Okay.
I think
here's what I think. I think Ferrari will redshirt, and the reason I think it is because he is one of the best kids in the country. Coming out last year, I thought number one. Maybe he was the second best because he didn't wrestle in a few events. But to me, he's the best kid in the country coming out. I think he's a little small for 84 right now. I think he's going to get a little bit bigger. And then you lose Starachi, Keckheisen, Plot next year. He's as good as everybody else at 184. So then you're looking at, you could win nationals your freshman year. And if you do that, you have an opportunity to win a second one and a third and a fourth, which I would desperately wanted with Spencer.
Yeah.
So I think Gabe is a true 74-pounder. I think he can wrestle 84. I think he can place at 84 because I think after the first, gauntlet of three guys, I think he can compete with most everybody else. 74, that's where I'm really confused because I've watched Nelson Brands now 2 matches this year. He's shot a couple times, but they weren't great shots. They were just kind of straight on doubles when he was losing. He hasn't opened up, and Kennedy opened up, and obviously it was against somebody he knew. And like we had talked, David, he wrestled every day in the room probably. So he knew he could open up on him and score when he wanted to. And so it's really not a good point to go saying, well, yeah, look how good Kennedy. Well, yeah, Kennedy's good. He's always been good, but he's never placed at nationals. So I think it's going to stay probably, and I'm changing my opinion because we had talked about this. I think it will probably stay Brands at 74. I know. And I think it'll stay
Gabe
at 84.
That is a 180 for you from Sunday.
I know.
I mean,
just thought,
and you were yelling
for
at
some
me.
Reason Nelson's head's not in it this year, but watching that meet and maybe seeing that he can say, "That's what I need to be doing. I'm going to start doing it." I got 1 year left.
Which was my point.
I agree. You were right, but it looked like he had lost the desire to go out and have, when every match is so close. It's tough when you're in your 7th or 8th year of college and, you're married and you got other things you want to do in life. It's tough to do it.
Not arguing. We got to keep it moving. We got a bunch of other stuff to get to. 97, Buchanan kills Christian Carroll, takes him down with 3 seconds left. Again, a guy that didn't concentrate at the end of the period. Tough ride out. Second period actually gets a stalling call against Carroll. Finishes with the major. Dresser talked about him being inconsistent in practice, his high points being really high, needs more consistency. I personally think as good as Carroll is, his length or lack thereof is an issue. Like he gets to the splits and these tall guys. So like a Cardenas, like a Rocky Elam, like a Michael Beard are going to be able to just come up to the body and take him down. 97, Younger Bastida hadn't wrestled since he was banged up in March. He gets 2 takedowns. Keeter gets a near side cradle. Got the crowd into it, doesn't get it. You can tell Keeter's improved. You can tell he's going to be a guy that's probably going to at least be in the blood round, if not better, come Saturday morning or Friday night and Saturday morning at NCAAs. Overall, 21-15. I think we can pick stock up, stock down another time because this coming week will be really not a lot of activity. So we'll be able to review this even more next week. But I want to get to some of the other results. Illinois beats Missouri on Thursday night. Really good duel, 23-14. They had like dinner and a show kind of thing. Probably Adesayev is out for the year, by the way, for Illinois. Bad neck. Lucas Bird looks like he could be in the national finals. Scholes and Steed had a good match that stopped short. Bronigal wrestled Keegan really tough. Was like a 1-point match to late, and then Keegan ran away and got the major. And then Aiden Sinclair beats the bigger Bronigal. Aiden Sinclair starts out really good, kind of has this lull in the middle and goes good at the end. We saw the same thing against Virginia Tech. He's using those 5 dates. I think we're all hoping Rocky Elam is healthy. Sinclair will go down to 84 next year when Colton Hawks graduates. So, Colton Hawks is having a nice season as well. But that was a big duel. Yesterday, Northern Iowa wrestled South Dakota State, and it was 15-15, 5 matches apiece, came down to match points. Probably the match of the day was Berge against Keckheisen. Keckheisen pulled away late. Some other good scraps in there, but Tanner Jordan barely won. You got an overtime. So we can go through the weight classes because I think some of that is interesting. We're going to use Flow this week because the only rankings, they're the only ones that have updated them as of now, Tuesday morning. So. Okay, so 25, kind of the big mover here is Yuri Volk. He had himself a tough weekend. He lost to Spratley, and he lost to Lorenzo from OU. A couple guys in here really aren't wrestling a whole lot right now. Figueroa's not wrestling. Provo's not wrestling. I haven't seen Diaco Mahalis wrestle. Dean Peterson sat out of a duel. Noah Certain hasn't wrestled at all this year. I think the sleeper on this list, guys, is Vincent Robinson, who's pretty much taken over that starting spot. A lot of guys are super high on Spratley right now. I will remind people he was 6 seconds away from losing to Utah Valley. So kind of hard to tell where he is in all this. Figueroa didn't wrestle him this weekend. I heard on another podcast, somebody goes, Spratley should be number 1 now. This is always the quandary, Mark, you and I had about rankings, like how long a guy sits out before you move him. Like they're going to have that problem at 57. I think they'll take Teamer out and then put him back in.
Well, David, just for an example, and this is how I look at it. Joey Volk beat Tanner Jordan in the All-Star meet, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Spratley beat who? Joey Volk. And then beat another returning guy that was up there fairly high.
I don't agree. I don't agree with these rankings, by the way.
Yeah, I don't either. So he should be ahead. He should be right at number 4 right now.
Which guy?
Spratley should be 4.
You go Figs 1, Smith 2, Ramos 3, Spratley 4, Jordan 5, and then I'd probably put Poole in 6, Volk 7 because he's wrestling. Provo's not wrestling. But that'd be me. That's how I would do it. So. Okay, 33. So no real changes here because you can look at, if you're seeing this, like they have their changes from last week. They're literally their top 16 are the same. So I don't know if Camacho is going to come into this, so that'll be interesting to see. Braden Davis did not wrestle, by the way. Luke Lilladale did wrestle, so they got him ranked at 24th, which is pretty smart. They put him as high as they could, right above the Army guy who he beat in the finals, and he beat McHenry in the semifinals. 41. So Kaiarini lost. So NC State's a little bit in flux right now, guys. Like, I don't know if they can chase Arini back down to 33. He looks big, but he lost. Vincent Robinson took over for Camacho. So right now Camacho's wrestling 33. Do you move Arini down to 33, put Ryan Jack back in at 41? Kind of first world problems. GT, you're coaching in a room, and I think it's safe to say the guys in the room kind of know what's best, right? As a coach, like people pontificating on the outside, like Mark and I, like if we were pontificating about the Grandview lineup, we might be right, but if we did, we'd probably get lucky. You guys really know who the best guys are, correct?
Well, I think you know what they're capable of. I think also results matter, right? So, like, once again, anybody can, go to our buddy's website and look at like who beat who and where they're at and what the matches look like and how they wrestle. But I think I think as far as setting the lineups are concerned, I think the coaches do a really good job of figuring out who they want to be able to put out there. But once again, results matter, opens matter, duels matter. So
I will tell you this. I had to call Sunday, Virginia against Michigan. Sergio Lemley was in a 1-1 match going into the third period and beat the guy 16-1. Bonkers. Like, absolutely just boat raced the guy in the third period. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Like, not even like, I've seen matches like one guy gets tired and gets taken down, let go, take down, let go. Just boat raced him. So
I really think 141 may be the toughest weight in college this year. Those top 4 guys are absolutely hammers.
Give me the top 3 at 184. I'll take that over them. But I hear your point. Okay, 49. So this would be interesting. You know, this is Echemendia is here at 6. I will say this, Mark, if Echemendia goes down to 41, I probably agree with you there for sure. Cannon Webster looked good against Missouri. He got some online heat for face smashing Logan Giaffrey. Jesse Vasquez had a good win this weekend. He beat Carter Young. I mean, he was, I guess, favored to, but that's still a good win. So not a lot of change here. We will see if everybody wrestles Parco and Ty Whalen, not this Friday, but next Friday evening in St. Charles, Missouri. So that'll happen. So 57, we talked about this, guys. Teamer injured, Shapiro injured, Cardenas redshirting. Kasak is 4, Keller's 5, Downey 6, Antrell Taylor 7. As GT said, Patty Gallagher sitting there at 8, Tommy Askey's 9, Panero's 10. You'd have to imagine Chittum would be at least where Panero is. The interesting thing about this is a lot of guys. There's not a finalist in here except Teamer. There's not a champion in here. And there's a bunch of guys that haven't placed that are ranked pretty high. Like Patty Gallagher on down have not placed. So something interesting to look at there. 65. Not a lot of change. So Cam Amin is kind of struggling a little bit, GT. Like kind of doing what he was doing last year for part of the year where he's not attacking a lot. He's so good when he wrestles hard. You know, you coach guys, is it just more of a mental thing trying to get them to just come out of their shell and let it rip?
I think there's a lot of different reasonings for that. I think biggest thing probably for Cam Amin is that like he's wrestled some tough guys already too. Mm-hmm. So once again, I think when you get really, really talented guys, like right out the gate, maybe you're a little gun shy, you haven't really got into it. The more matches I think we see out of him, the better it will be for him. So I think give that guy some body of work, get him like 15, 20 matches and just see where he's at then.
Yeah, Mark, I would guess that you and I would have Nico Ruiz above Amin since they're 9 and 12 and Ruiz just beat him head to head. We'd probably meet him somewhere in the middle, like, or depending on Will Miller and Bubba Wilson's resume. Is that how you would do it?
Yep. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Bubba lost once this year already also. So, yeah, I would put Ruiz probably right where Amin is.
Yeah, I would have thought that would have been your answer. Yep. Lenny Pinto took a loss this weekend, so he drops from 6 to 9. This is an interesting weight class. We saw Lorenzo Norman wrestle well early this year, beat Brands. Again, that's interesting. They're 8 and 12 ranked respectively. Cade DeVos trying to think who he wrestled from Northern Iowa. Oh, Sima. I watched that match. Sima had him where he almost had him pinned, and DeVos got out of it, came back and ran him down late. Mark, you are real high on Oklahoma State's development of some of these upperweight guys. Do we feel like Dean Hamidi can beat any of the 3 guys above him?
Yes.
All of them? One of them? 2 of them?
2 of them. I think he's that good. I really do. I think he reminds me of a lot and it's kind of hard to explain this. He does a lot of the same type of things that David Taylor used to do when he was young. He just was so fluent, can go in different positions, scrambling, put people on their back, do what he wanted to do. he's learning from the master now. I think he's just going to continue to get better and better. Keegan's having close matches. The one that I think he's going to have the hardest time with is Levi. Levi's an absolute stud. I mean, this guy just keeps getting better and better. And for 2 years, I said, I don't think he's the best kid in the country. And for 2 years, pretty much proven me wrong. So, I think Levi's probably the best kid at the weight. But I think committee may be number 2 right now.
Yeah, GT, look at the Big 12 there right now. We got number 1, 3, 4, and 10. That's pretty salty. It's going to have a big impact on the seeding at NCAAs, obviously, right?
Well, I also think that Jared Simmett at 14, he was a problem. He was able to get, I think it was all the way to the quarters last year. Was, I believe, up by I don't remember what the actual number was. Maybe 6.
6 or 7 against Griffith.
7.
Yeah. So, once again, I think when you look at the power conferences here between the Big 10, Big 12, ACC.
Yeah. Those three really.
A lot of power there, man.
Yes, for sure. 84. So this is where I was telling you, I think the top 3 in the country, Mark, are the best, but I don't disagree about 41. Max McAnally is having himself a season right now, by the way, all bonus point wins. I got to watch Jackson Smith wrestle. He's been looking good. TJ Stewart takes another loss to Rutgers this week, so he drops again. But, again, look at again, we know how good the Big 10 is, but look at the Big 12. They're number 2, 3, 4, and 8 are all, 2, 3, 4, and 8 are all in the Big 12. So, and then everybody else there's in the Big 10, the other 6 guys in the top 10. So, absolutely fantastic weight in those 2 conferences. All right, 97. It's starting to feel like Buchanan has really shown some separation. He hasn't wrestled a Cardenas, an Elam, a Ferrari, a Stephen Little yet. Stephen Little had the really close match with Bronigal, and then, as we mentioned, Bronigal lost to Sinclair, who's really not a 97-pounder. Luke Serber had a big win over the weekend. He won. Who did he beat 5-0, guys? Help me.
He beat Munoz.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so this is another one, right? Munoz and Serber, you kind of got to meet those guys in the middle, right, Mark, in the rankings?
Yeah. I agree. But Munoz did look good against Buchanan's first time out. Buchanan obviously kind of hit a wall there in the third period, but was able to find a way to win. I think Buchanan looks a lot better now, can score late like he did against Iowa State. But, those top 4 guys are all neck and neck. It's going to be fun.
And your guy, Josh Barr, smashed at the Black Knight.
You guys didn't think Josh Barr could be an All-American. I'm going to stand by this one. I did. I was the only one that picked him to place at Nationals because he's from Penn State. Grant, I'm not 100% sure you didn't pick him, but I know David didn't. So
no, I didn't put him. But once again, I think if Josh Barr gets to Nationals, then hit the algorithm, right? We're in a 90% All-American statistical area.
The cross-pollination of the algorithm is real.
Yeah. Hey, I'm running out of big words, boys. The show's almost over.
That's fantastic. And we kind of touched on it, but KSAC did beat Facundo in the Black Knight. So we're all sort of guessing collectively that he's probably the starter. And then Josh Bars looks like he's earned that starting position as well. Okay, heavyweight. Let's see what we got here. So doesn't change the rankings, but Wyatt Hendrickson handled Colton Schultz. And then the other move here is Owen Treffin, mid-season transfer from NC State to Lehigh. I don't think any of us really know what the transfer rules are, when you can transfer, when you can't. Maybe he's announcing. I think he'll probably wrestle in January. So I was on Scott Casper's show. And by the way, I need to thank Scott Casper for the hospitality on Saturday morning. I think and I definitely need to thank Eddie and Brandy and EJ Woody for the hospitality on Friday night in Des Moines. They fed your boy and hung out. We watched some wrestling together. Just awesome people. Southeast Polk, stand up. But we had a conversation with one of the guys on Saturday, and he's like, I think these kids should be loyal to the program. And this is my argument. Number one, they don't have to be. But number two, if any of us had a job, like you're an accountant, and somebody's going to give you 20% more to go to this other place and do the exact same job, you're probably leaving. And Owen Treffin is a senior, and he just wants to wrestle. Like, he doesn't want to be on the bench, and he doesn't want to wait for an Isaac Trumbull injury, and he's not hurting anybody. And Nathan Taylor got hurt, who was a top-ranked guy. He's probably right where Treffin was. I'd have to look where he was last week, but probably right in that range. So, anyway.
Here's the question for me. When we started the year rankings here, David, we had Kirk Fleet number 1, Henderson number 2,
Hendrickson,
Feldman number 3,
yeah,
who's now dropped down to 8th, and I don't think he's lost a match.
He lost to Gadiali.
He did lose to guy. Okay, that's why he's dropped down. All right. I was wondering how he slid so fast. And then Gagliotti just wrestled some guy some scrub from Minnesota, Gable. And yeah, that didn't work out too good for him there. Man, Gable is still in shape. He can still score whenever he wants to score. He's something.
Adam Cherapelli posted on Twitter that he thinks the best reattacks he's ever seen. I can't remember if he said for a heavyweight or just period, but he is so high level with that. It's unbelievable. I mean, that's how he won the Olympics.
It's going to be such a fun way to watch this year. It really is.
GT,
we were talking, David, how they see this at nationals, even if it's like what it is right now, because the number 2 seed will probably be the Big 12 champion, because Kirk Fleet's probably going to lose at least 2 times this, Gable. So, and if they don't wrestle, somebody's going to be undefeated on the bottom. So it's going to be fun to see what happens.
Wait a minute. Who doesn't wrestle?
Well, let's say Henderson and Kirk Fleet don't meet during the year.
Hendrickson.
Yes.
Not Henderson. Hendrickson.
Hendrickson don't meet. So say he's undefeated in the Big 12 and runs a gauntlet, or Bastida goes undefeated and he doesn't wrestle any of the 2 Big 10 guys. He's probably going to be the number 2 seed.
Yep.
I will. Wyatt could be 3. Kirk Fleet could be 4.
All right, GT, I'm on a curveball mark here. You know who could be the 3 seed? Trumbull. Because he can go undefeated and be a conference champ. So then 2 of those guys go to the 4-5 side, and the 4-5 side is death because you're on the same side as Gable. And if you're in the 4-5 and you lose that match, you got to win another match just to be an All-American because you're in the blood round. So this is just going to be a fascinating thing. The other thing in here is Josh Heinzelman is ranked. He will not wrestle till January because he's transferring from Oklahoma. I heard a crazy reason why, which was just bonkers to me, but pretty interesting. So, all right, let's go to the team score, see what's adjusted this week. So Minnesota's up tied with Missouri for 6 now. Oklahoma State is like in a 3-way tie with Nebraska and Ohio State. Iowa's still clearly ahead. I mean, if you take the teamer points off, they're still pretty comfortable in second, and, they're a long way from first. Stanford's up at 10th, but again, that's what's misleading. They got Provo points and they got Cardenas points. And, neither one of them have wrestled a match this year. Iowa State's 13th. It'd be really interesting. We don't have time to do it now, but to go through the rankings and see where they would be with Echemendia at 41, Pinheiro down to 49, Chittum at 57. I don't know that their rankings change a lot. I think how they think they can score points changes a lot. Then if Connor Uten continues to improve at 65, because we've talked about 65 is kind of a free-for-all after the first 2 guys. And then 74 if they move MJ Gaitan in. And then Terrakina He's had some good wins at 25. So just an interesting situation there. Lehigh picks up a couple points. Actually, they sort of trade out. Sorry. They're probably net 0. And Cornell, if you take Shapiro out, they drop from 30 to 14 points. They would drop down to between Purdue and Bakersfield. So that would be a wild year for them. Collectively, Arizona State, by the way, is at 26. So if you added Teamer and Parco back in, they would be in 3rd. So it just shows you how powerful the portal is. So that is interesting. Let me see if there's anything else here we need to cover. We talked about Black Knight. We talked about Treffin. We can collectively talk about quickly. There's a duel tonight on UFC Fight Pass. Mizzou against Northern Iowa. I'll read through the probables. I think it'll be Gage Walker against Trevor Anderson, Cade Moore, Julian Farber, Josh Edmond, Cale Happel. That's a great match. Logan Giaffrey, Colin Real Budo, James Conway, Ryder Downey, Cam Steed, Jack Thompson, Keegan O'Toole, Jared Sima, Colton Hawks, Parker Keckheisen. That's probably the highest ranked match. I think we see Sinclair against Volker. And then Seth Nitzel, and I don't know who the UNI 285 is, so I apologize. But this feels like another one of those sort of 5-5, 6-4 kind of duels. They did the duel Sunday in Northern Iowa. This is up Tuesday at Heartland, Michigan, because that's where Keckheisen's from, that's where O'Toole's from, and that's where Ben Askren and John Messenbrink coach. So I told GT, I told this to Mark on Friday. I told you too. UFC Fight Pass had somebody they thought was going to cancel, so I was almost doing this meet tonight, and then they had somebody. The guy came back, so but it was nice to at least be thought of. And I'm actually going to be doing the duels next Friday for them, Iowa and Princeton, which is the first duel, and then Iowa Army here in St. Charles, Missouri, at Francis Howell High School, which is not very far from my house. So, as the corny guy on the show, I will give everybody a couple minutes here where we got time, and Mark hasn't gotten paid yet, so that's good. Marco, as the
I did. I got paid, so I got to go to work.
all
I'm
right.
gonna say happy Thanksgiving to everybody, especially you two. It's an honor just to be on this show. I know I'm getting up there in age, and it makes it tough to stay up with everything that's going on with my schedule. I don't usually pronounce some of the names right, but you guys seem to tolerate it. I don't know why. But I still love the sport. I still feel like I know certain things that maybe other people don't see just by watching. So I hope I have some influence. But to you and your families, I want everybody to have a happy Thanksgiving. And I got to go to work.
All right. GT.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up just as a wrestling topic, which is, something that we do on this show from time to time, was I wanted to give a huge shout out to Missouri Valley College in hosting one of the largest women's wrestling events in the country every year for the college girls. I mean, once again, if you want to go nerd out on a whole bunch of data, those brackets are ginormous. So, take a look at all that.
Kevin Corbin's the coach there. He wrestled for us for a year. Mike Mockles, longtime coach there. Yeah, good people, kind of in the middle of nowhere, but a ton of commerce for Marshall, Missouri. So, yeah. And Iowa did pretty well there, as anticipated, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was some girls that weren't necessarily wrestling in it. I think, some of like Nanea, Kylie Welker, just to name a few, because we had seen them when we were at the duel. But when it comes to the Thanksgiving time period for everybody, spend some time with friends and family, spend time with your teammates, spend time with everybody that you want to spend time with during this time period. Take a break from work, relax,
All the work's going to be there on Monday. It'll all be there on Monday.
It'll all be there on Monday, everybody. So enjoy your time. To everybody at USA Wrestling, same thing. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this podcast. Everybody at USA Wrestling, spend time with your family. Enjoy yourselves. We'll be back to work on Monday.
Yeah, I want to thank Eddie and Shane and yourself for the support of all the events that I have my hands on, and just the willingness, if I have a crazy idea, for you guys to go, let's try it. To you and Mark, this is probably most weeks my favorite 60 minutes of the week, just talking to you guys about stuff. And I spoke to Gary yesterday and I thanked him. Just said, I appreciate you putting us on the air. Gary and Scott Casper were the first two guys that encouraged me in doing this stuff. So it's when you get encouraged by the GOATs, that's reason to keep it moving, GT, as you know. I mean, you get to talk to a lot of the big names in the sport, and all the guests that have come on, appreciate them. And all the people around the country, like I was telling Eddie and Brandy Woody Friday night, like how many people in America are just welcoming. And, you walked in Saturday night after the meet and you're like Norm from Cheers, everybody there loves you. And there's just a lot of great wrestling people in the world that they just try to, right now the world or country's divided. And I love wrestling in the sense that it doesn't really matter what you believe politically. People find common ground, and it's very heartwarming. And it's cool to see just people that have worked hard and used wrestling to springboard themselves into other areas of life. So, and we should thank the watchers and listeners, GT. Like without those guys, we wouldn't be on, and women, we wouldn't be on the air. So we appreciate you guys so much. The DMs, the text, all those, the emails, all that stuff is greatly appreciated. Sometimes you just don't know if you're whistling in the wind. So whenever people tell you that you're doing a good job, or even if there's a suggestion, we appreciate that. So on behalf of Mark and Grant, I'm David. Happy Thanksgiving. We will see you all next week.